And despite our balky video intro, I want to welcome you to a Monday Huddle with Bruce Hooley and Sonny Folks, soon to be joined by Jeff Gilbert, another Press Pros staffer who will give us some insight on some teams that Mr. Folks and I are not fully detailed on, but we have a lot to talk about. A state championship for the Tri-Village girls and the Russia boys seeking a state championship, and a couple other teams that could make a little Ohio history, including Pickerington Central, which is trying to win its second championship in a row, and Centerville, which is trying to win its second championship in 3 years. So welcome in. You can hit us with a social media message via our Facebook page. Mr. Folks, you are not in the studios of Skynet Internet tonight. You are at your home studios, and if in fact you freeze up during the show, it will be because you are not in the studios of Skynet Internet Services in downtown Pickerington.
That would be true, and that's all the more reason why, if you got sketchy internet and Wi-Fi at your house, you might want to give them a call at 773-0098 in Piqua. That's Skynet Internet, servicing 9 counties in west central Ohio, in and about Miami, Shelby, Dark, Mercer, All Glazed. All of those places, they can find you, they can fix you, and they can do better by you. Give them a call. Dr. Craig and Mike Grissom, again at Skynet Internet, downtown Piqua. The number again, 937-773-0098.
Well, before we bring in Jeff Gilbert and turn our attention to the boys' state tournament this weekend, let's do a quick recap of the undefeated, number 1 ranked, and now state champion Tri-Village girls. What a story they are. Lots of heartbreak for 3 years, and it culminated in a 52-50 win on Saturday afternoon over Toledo Christian, a team Tri-Village had beaten by 15 during the regular season at Classic in the Country up at Berlin Highland, which coincidentally was the team that Tri-Village knocked off in the semifinals. But the story of 3 seniors, Sonny, who really came up big when Coach Brad Gray needed them to.
Well, let's be honest. That's heartbreak for more than 3 years. I mean, it's 3 years maybe for this group, but that goes all the way back a decade or so, when they made their other trip to the state Final Four and got beat, I think, by Berlin Highland in the state semis a decade ago. And have tried so much. I think that was a learning experience. If I remember talking with Brad at the time, just to be on the big stage for the first time, and everything is different. I swear the hoop, instead of being 18 inches, looks like, feels like, plays like it's 12 inches wide. The court looks like it's 100 yards wide, 100 yards long, not 94 feet. And it's just, that experience of being on that big stage is so overwhelming when you've never been there before and you go there for the first time. And they have been through a transformational, I think, era of getting ready, preparing for what they did on Saturday. And they were magnificent, quite frankly. They came out. They got a couple of good, sizable leads. You knew, like Brad Gray says, that Toledo Christian was going to make a run at them and come back. They did, got within 2 points. And every time they did, instead of panicking, instead of getting the big eye, instead of saying, oh, my gosh, is this going to happen to us again? No, they dug down. They found a shot. They found a play. They found a stop. They found everything that they needed to give themselves distance and a cushion, and ended up, their bigs played, that would be Hunt and Tori Richards, Morgan Hunt, Tori Richards, and Riley Sagasters came up big for them every time they needed them. That's a championship performance. That's a championship team. That's a legacy team. Really, I think Brad said it very well that this is going to be remembered for a long, long time in New Madison, Ohio, and Dark County.
Yeah, they might win other state championships. They'll never win a first one again. That's the first one for the Tri-Village girls. Riley Sagaster with 20, Morgan Hunt with 11, Tori Richards with 9, but she was 3 for 3 on 3-pointers. And Morgan Hunt hit the big 3-point play after Toledo Christian had pulled within 2 to really steady Tri-Village. They got a stop. Next time down, they found Tori Richards on the left wing. She drained a 3-point field goal, and then Riley Sagaster closed it out with 2 free throws that at the time we thought were just, oh, by the way, cushion padding free throws. Turned out they were significant for 2 reasons. Number one, because it put her over the 2,000 point mark for her career, which is a tremendous accomplishment. And then it ended up being the margin of victory because Kendall Braden threw in a 3-pointer at the buzzer that had it been 50 to 42 at one juncture, Toledo Christian would have forced overtime. And I don't know, Tri-Village won that game 3 times Saturday. I'm glad they didn't have to win it a 4th time. And what a tremendous story. And we're really glad, too, for Brad Gray, because he has put in 17 years as the girls coach at Tri-Village. He's had great teams. And I thought it was fitting that they kind of slayed all the monsters in getting this title. They knocked off Fort Loramie in a tighter than tight regional final, with Loramie coming within a hair's breadth at the end of throwing in a 30-foot three-pointer. It was in and out at the buzzer, or Tri-Village experiences heartbreak again. Then they beat Highland, which is the gold standard for girls hoops in Ohio, with 6 state titles. So to beat Loramie, to beat Highland, and then to win the championship and to complete a perfect season, a season in which they were ranked number 1 all year long, just a really, really special way for those Tri-Village seniors to go out. And we don't want to slight Kennedy Hager, who had 10 points in the game, a tremendous effort by one of the next cornerstone pieces Brad Gray will build around, along with Sydney DeLong, the freshman starters. Kennedy Hager came off the bench this year, and so he's got 2 nice pieces to build around, along with Bella Black, who will be coming back next year. And Bella Black had, I think, 10 boards in the championship game. So an all-around effort by them, and a great game to be a part of, and privileged to be a part of it, and to get to write about it and take photos of it.
I want to make this point before we move on to something else about Brad Gray. And I have talked to Brad so many times, and he's made the point to me consistently. Look, there's only so much you can do in girls basketball to try to get to that next level. And he's worked so hard. They've had the athletes, but you've got to have the experience, and you have to have the competition. And it's harder to find the kind of competition that, steel forges steel. When to play in a game like they did on Saturday. It's harder to find that in the girls' competition than it is in boys. And he's worked so hard, especially the last 3 years, to your point when we opened, to try to get the best of all comers that they can play, to prepare them for Saturday, because they saw some things Saturday you're not going to see against Arcanum or the Mississinawa Valley or teams like that in the Western Ohio Athletic Conference. And it's tougher. And it's, as a coach, to have that kind of patience and commitment to stay the course with your girls, stay the course, with your program, like he has done, is exemplary. And I think that gets overlooked. I don't think it gets considered enough. I know it does there in New Madison to the people who are insiders with that program, but people in the other 87 counties in Ohio, they lose sight of that. And that's unfair, because it's tougher to build a girls program. You can have a Riley Sagaster and a Tori Richards and a Morgan Hunt and a Bella Black and a Kennedy Hager. You can have girls like that, but they got to play against somebody that prepares them for Saturday.
Yeah, and I would say, just after having the pleasure of watching that team play, the seniors play for 3 years, what I noticed Saturday was a mental toughness in those seniors that was not always present. And Brad talks about it in terms of I think he calls it their response mechanism, because they're afraid when you're a coach, if you say something about a team's mental toughness, people might take it the wrong way. But that's really what response mechanism is like being mentally tough. And I have seen Riley play, and Riley, to her credit, is one to admit that when she's been face guarded in other years, she's let it get to her. She's let it frustrate her. She's now found ways to drive the basketball, to score in the lane, to set up her teammates. She had 6 assists, I think, in the first half on Saturday. She finds other ways to beat you. And then, of course, in the second half, when Toledo Christian was not as vigilant in guarding her on her belt buckle like they were early, she made them pay. And she hit her 400th career three-pointer on Saturday. So what a career for her. But the growth in her from a mentally tough perspective, and in Morgan Hunt and in Tori Richards, is really why Tri-Village won the title. So congratulations to all of them. Really fun to watch the Lady Patriots play. And it doesn't get any better than 30-0, number 1 ranked in the state championship to go out. So There'll be some boys teams that'll try to do that this week. I don't think we have any undefeateds still playing, but the man who can help us with that is our own Jeff Gilbert, who joins us now from his home in Cedarville, Ohio. Hello, Gibby. How you doing? Oh, Gibby, you're muted. I think he's muted. You're muted. There we go.
Yeah.
I still can't hear you, Gibby. What's up? You're muted. I'm gonna chat him. You're muted. Hopefully his mic will be enabled, and we'll see if we can get it figured out.
Folks, we love it when a plan comes together.
We do love it. You can tell we really planned this. So let me private message him while let's talk, Sonny, about the games. They are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 10:45 is the opener, Lutheran West against Chaminade, and you have seen Chaminade. I have not. We're hoping we get Jeff's mic situation straightened out. And you tell us about Chaminade, what you saw.
Saw them last week against Watterson, a very athletic team, very talented, very good at the guard position, which I think is what you need to win a state title, or at least to compete for one, and ultimately win one. But George Washington III has the entire game, handles the ball, shoots the ball, slashes, does a lot of things that you trust on the basketball court, and then he's got plenty of people around him. But their pressure defense is unparalleled. They're going to get in your grill. They're going to rough you up. They're going to make you respect their athleticism. And there's just no minutes off. There is no lead too big. We saw that a couple of years ago when Tip City had a 20-point lead on them at halftime. And Jeff Gilbert, you might remember that. I don't know if you covered that game or not, where Tip had the big lead on them, and then they just whittled away in the second half and just wore Tip down to ultimately win that game. So that's my impression of Chaminade. They're very athletic. They're deep enough to go a couple on their bench if somebody gets in foul trouble, and they pretty much have interchangeable parts on the court.
Oh, still can't hear him. I don't know what the deal is. He's not muted on my end. Can you hear me? Can you hear? You can hear us. We can't.
Can we sign this?
We need the women from the national anthem at Ohio State to sign it. I don't know what to tell you. Let me see here. Let me take him off because I hate to have him on camera if he's not able to be heard. I'm going to ask him if he's sure his mic is on because we'd love to hear from him. Because he's got a perspective that the two of us do not have. All right, so Reedy and Buckle. Reedy's number one. Oh, Reedy is undefeated. I apologize to Bishop Reedy. They are undefeated, and they will be chasing a Division II championship. The other games, first of all, the second game is Reedy and Buckle. Our Steve Blackledge will be covering that game for us, of course. The 5 o'clock game on Friday is Berlin Highland and Convoy Crestview. No, wait a minute. That's not yes, it is Convoy Crestview. We were hoping that would be Berlin Highland and Marion Local. So let's talk about that for a second and tell us, Mr. Folks, without launching into a long diatribe on officiating. Marion had that game won and didn't stay with what was working for them earlier. Maybe Crestview took them out of it. Now you're muted. Wait a minute. Okay, now try it.
They're up 11-0 in the first quarter. Hit the first three-pointers they took. Luke Pullman got them off to a great start, and they just in the second quarter, for whatever reason, and I think it had a lot to do with Crestview's defense and commitment to pressure the ball. They just came out and started. They lost motion in their offense. They became a sedentary basketball team, and little by little, Crestview picked them off. They got down to 3 or 4 points at halftime, and in the second half, Marion has 7-point lead at the end of the 3 quarters, but you could tell that panic was beginning to set in a little bit, and you could tell that Crestview was the more comfortable team, and they ultimately got it down to 40-40 at the end of the game, and you know how it ended up if you read our story. 41-40 was a free throw won it. And quite frankly, Marion could have won it had they made some free throws because they were 9 of 14. There are 5 missed free throws that cost them a trip to Dayton this weekend. So that's part of basketball. And we made the point about officiating enough, and it is what it is. But it's part of basketball. When you have those opportunities at the line with nobody guarding you, you got to cash in.
Yes, you do.
Crestvew's a good team, though. Crestview's a good team. I had somebody write to me over the weekend and said, no, they're not just a good team. They're a damn good team. So we'll take him at his word because they got some fine players. They've been well coached for many, many years by Doug Etzler. His son Gavin is point guard on that team. Only scored like 6 points the other night, but you could tell there's nights when he could hit for 15 or 20 if he had to. He didn't take that many shots the other night. So they're a very well-balanced team, play well together, and they want to be there. They want to be there.
All right. I see Jeff Gilbert has switched to another device. We're going to see if that device has a working microphone as we bring in Mr. Gilbert. Hello, Jeff. Are you with us?
I believe so.
Yes, you are. Fantastic.
Yes,
Yeah, something's going on. I don't know why my computer wasn't working right, but the phone works. So
yeah.
So
well,
was that your computer or your lawnmower?
It was my computer.
Because that happens to me sometimes. You know me, I'm out here in the country and I get my devices mixed up, and it's embarrassing. Frankly, it's embarrassing.
I'm sure it is.
All right, Jeff. Sonny gave us his scouting report on Chaminade. You've seen him a couple of times. George Washington is their headliner. What do you know, if anything, about the matchup with Lutheran West, or what Chaminade feel like this is their year to win a title?
Well, they certainly feel like it's a year they can do it. I was just over at Chaminade earlier this evening, talking to Charlie Zabo, the coach, and for a couple stories. But I asked him about this matchup. They're athletic. They've got some big guys. They don't have any 6'8", 6'10" guys, but they got their 6'5", 6'6" type of players. And I think, we saw CJ have to play against the big kid from Waterson the other night, Rhett, and they were able, they had to double team him, but they were able to, as Sonny was talking about, I could hear the whole time Sonny was talking about them. They are quick, they're athletic, and they can get out and cover shooters when they have to. And that's what they were able to do the other night. And so, the conversation we had was that there's no super team in Division II. Not like last year, you would have had St. Vincent, St. Mary that nobody was going to touch, or like you might have in Division IV this year with Richmond Heights and like they were last year. So the feeling is really, I think, from what he said, from looking at some film, and from what I know about teams, is it's a pretty wide open. Any four of these teams could win it, and and I asked Coach Lombardo the other night after CJ beat Waterson. And I said, if they played Reedy, because he's played Reedy twice, right? They're in the same league. And he said, it'd be a very good game. It would be a good game. It would be a competitive game. Because, CJ beat him by, 10 or 11 the other night. I think it was 11. And I think Waterson's 2 losses to Reedy were similar scores, 10-point type games. So that sounds to me like it would be pretty well matched up. And, personnel-wise, George is the guy. He can score anytime he wants. He creates his own shot really well, and he can just kind of get it done. But they have got other parts. His brother, number 24, BB, that was, he drilled the long 3-pointer to put him up the other night. He can shoot. Evan Dickey's a really good player. He was a sophomore starter on that team 2 years ago that Sonny referenced, the one that came back and beat Tip and got to state and then got beat. That team was under the radar to get to state. Maybe McNick was the team, but then Waterson upset McNick in the semis. But this team with the Washington kids moving in, and George is going to Michigan, by the way, if you're not familiar with him, that's how good he is. He was an Ohio State commit at one time. Now he's a Michigan commit. From the time they came in, everybody's looked at this team as oh, this is a team that can go to state, maybe win it. They're going to be really good. So they've been getting everybody's best shot. And Alter gave them a really good shot the other night, but they found a way to win.
Well, George Washington is going to have to personally apologize to me because he is the reason that Gabe Cupps is not an Ohio State Buckeye, in my opinion. Because George Washington committed to Ohio State when there was one scholarship left. And the day after he committed to Ohio State, Gabe Cupps committed to Indiana. And then George Washington, I'll be nice, changed his mind. And now Gabe Cupps is still in Indiana, which breaks my heart today, broke it yesterday, and I am absolutely positive will break it numerous times over the next 4 years when Gabe Cupps is wearing those hideous candy pants warm-ups and beating Ohio State at least twice personally by himself. That is
This
what I
is
am.
a real man crush problem there, Sonny.
Yeah,
what
it
I
is.
am.
This ain't right.
I'm just saying. You know how they say your life flashes before your eyes, like the life behind you? I have a different thing with Gabe Cupps. I see what's coming flashing before my eyes. Gabe Cupps screaming into the camera after he hits a last-second shot to beat Ohio State. Not once, but at least twice during his career.
Yeah. He told me that the other night, sitting at courtside at Trent or Arena or somewhere, wherever we were.
While that great offensive display was playing out in front of us.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that was the Rushy Jackson Center game. Yes.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing that you talked about, Sonny, in reference to Tri Village was the schedule, trying to play up, trying to play good teams. And, CJ does that. They went over there and played Garfield Heights and beat them at that big event at Nationwide Arena back in December. They played at Flying to the Hoop, played a really good team from Georgia and lost by 5 or 6 points in that game. Played a GCL team from GCL South team, played LaSalle. They're always scheduling like that. And they don't just schedule like that just when they think they're going to be good. They do that all the time. They try to challenge themselves in the non-league. So it pays off. That kind of stuff pays off big time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I don't think, people always talk about it and make such a big deal about an undefeated season. I don't think there's anything more useless in sports than an undefeated season, because too often, you set yourself up to make it undefeated by the people you play. And I think you learn more from a loss, or at least a scare, or having your back against the wall. That's where you really figure out and find out where your leaders are, who your Riley Sagasters are, who your George Washingtons are. And I agree with you. The other night, I was amazed at just how he can score at will. If you take the lane away from him, he's very comfortable with stepping back 2 steps and throwing it up from 23, and he's got good range. So he's got the complete game. But that's how you find out who those people are, is by playing the kind of people they play.
Right. And they just had 2. I mean, this team is tested for state because they just had to survive 2 tough games at regionals. I mean, Alter had them by 8 points. Alter had an 8-point lead with 3.5 minutes to go the other night. And they outscored him 17-4 down the stretch. And George scored 16 of his 32 points in the fourth quarter. So they know who their guy is, and they know who the guy is on that team and is going to get it done. And he found his brother wide open for a 3-pointer. I think I was confusing the games earlier when I was talking to that. You weren't at the Alter game, you were at the Watterson game, but he hit a long 3, beyond NBA range to cut it to 2. And then they got a turnover and they come down next time, and he's trying to deal in the lane and get something. And they had 3 guys on him, and he kicked out to his brother, who drilled a 3 to put him ahead. And that was it. They were ahead to stay. So, he shoots a lot, but he should, and he'll find other guys. And Coach Szabo told me from day one, he took over because they moved in from Louisville this year because his dad is a assistant coach at UD for the women's team. And that's why they moved to town. He said from day one, George was a leader for this team, period. And the kids his teammates have obviously responded to him.
Hey, because we are in Central Ohio, and since Jeff, you were at the Watterson game with me the other night, I want to ask you this. I got an email today from a reader who read our account of the game the other night, your story about the game the other night, and he said, "What's Watterson need? What did Watterson lack in that game?" Interesting read. You guys do a great job. Blah blah. Wonderful. Appreciate the kind words. I would say combustible offense.
Yeah.
Be able to shoot the ball. More shooters. They didn't impress me as the other night as being comfortable to take the perimeter shot and make it. Your opinion?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think just overall guard play. I mean, I think handling it, setting up guys, and getting shots that are comfortable. A lot of times you'll look at a team and go, well, they just didn't shoot the ball well. Well, they didn't shoot it well, but why? And sometimes it's because the shots are rushed. They're not in rhythm. and other things. And I think there was some of that with that game. I mean, it's the only time I've seen them, so I don't know how well they shoot it usually. But they did not shoot it well. But they never, to your point earlier too about CJ's defense, they never let him be comfortable, And I think that's a big thing. If you can play defense and not let your opponent ever feel very comfortable when they have the ball in their hand, they're not going to shoot the ball as well. I mean, it's just a simple fact, and that's why pressure defense like that is tough. And when the best teams can overcome that a little bit, but it's still really hard. What can slow CJ down? Somebody who can make them feel uncomfortable on offense. If there's anybody in Dayton this weekend that can get them to an uncomfortable feeling on offense, they won't shoot the ball as well. But if you can't do that, they're gonna drill it.
Well, I don't know anything about Lutheran West, but I know Lutheran East can make you uncomfortable, and I assume that since even though Lutheran East is Division III, I assume Lutheran West plays the same kind of defense. So we'll see whether that happens or not.
I've heard it's a similar type program.
Yeah. So let's turn our attention to the nightcap on Friday. Jeff, you and I both were there for Russia and Jackson Center. Speaking of two teams that made each other uncomfortable on offense, they made the whole building uncomfortable on offense that night. Points were at a premium, shall we say?
Yeah,
27 to 25.
I said the couple guys, and you and another guy sitting there at the table said, "We're getting into the second half." It was the first team to 32 wins. I didn't think it was only going to be 27, but that was it.
I asked you when Russia had 26 and Jackson Center had 21 if Russia had enough to win.
Yeah,
and it turns out they did.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way to talk about this game without acknowledging that it was always going to be a game where, like every regional final, somebody's thrilled and somebody's crushed because everybody wants to get to the state tournament. This had the added X factor, I guess, of Russia playing its heart out for Dave Borchers, Jackson Center playing its heart out for Scott Elkert. Neither team, by losing, would have let its coach down. I know Scott was enormously proud of his guys, as he should have been. It came down like their first game did this year to one shot. As their first game occurred, this one did the same. The last shot did not go in. And so now Russia gets Richmond Heights, and Richmond Heights is deemed to be the super team. They have beaten, was it a regional semifinalist in Division I, Fairfield?
Yeah, they beat Fairfield, who just lost to Centerville at Flying to the Hoop back in January. I saw the game. They're good.
Yeah. So Richmond Heights is a super team. But Botkins beat them 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, Sonny, you've seen Russia more than either one of us. I was very impressed at the regional with Russia's defense. I mean, I thought they were lockdown defense in the semis and in the finals, and they will absolutely have to be that against Richmond Heights.
I think they're going to have the kind of game against Richmond that Botkins had 2 years ago in the semifinals. And they're going to be wary of that happening to them as they were last year when they played Tri-Village. They're very athletic. They've got, as we know, they've got great transportation to and from the arena.
They do. They thanked Manley Automotive last year in the postgame. Never heard that before. Never heard a high school team thank a car dealer. Make of that what you will.
But you asked me about Russia, and when Russia is very good, they play very confidently from the get-go, from the start. That's going to be critical for them this weekend, is to get off to a good start, to shoot the ball well. Now, it concerns me a little bit that they didn't shoot it very well the other night in that arena. And, of course, there's a depth perception issue. I think Russia's got one of the more accommodating gymnasiums in West Central Ohio. We've all been there, and where the rim is right up against the wall. So the depth perception issue there is going to be an issue. So they got to get off to a good start. And they got to get off to a confident start. They got to do the things they do well on defense. Got to create some turnovers. I think they got to get, frankly, 12, 15 points in transition, easy buckets. If it comes down to a half-court game where they have to drill three-point shots, I'm not sure they can do that. I've seen them on nights when they hit 12 threes. Against Anna last year, they had a fantastic shooting night, but they're not going to do that every night. So they're going to rely on their defense. They're going to rely on their depth because they can play 7 or 8. They're going to give up some fouls, but I think their issue is they've got to have turnovers. They got to have easy baskets.
Hey, Jeff, what's one other thing Russia has to do that they didn't do the other night?
Put the ball in
Make
the
free
hole.
throws.
Oh,
yeah,
make free throws. Yeah.
Everybody's got to do that.
Yeah, they got to do that.
Everybody's got to do
have
that.
to make free throws.
But seriously,
the thing with Heights is too. It's not only when I saw him. It's not only the athletic. That you're looking 6'6", 6'5", 6'6" across the board type of stuff. It's one thing to deal with one 6'6" guy. Yeah. When they start throwing 3 or 4 of them at you, that's and all that length, that makes it difficult.
Well, and the other thing about points in transition, you can't trust that they're not going to run you down and smack it off the board.
Absolutely.
They're going to put the LeBron on you. So you not only have to get points in transition, you've got to shield the ball with your body against that type of thing if you've got the open shot at the end of the court. So it's going to be a challenge for Russia. They're going to have to play as well as they can play. But again, if they don't get off to a good start and play confidently and do the things that make them feel like they've got a chance to win, it's going to be very tough for them.
They've got some length, though. Braden Monin and Benjamin York, they've got some length. Braylon Cordonier, they've got enough length to deal with 6'5", 6'6". They're going to have to block out. They're going to have to know that they're going to get fouled, and fouls aren't going to be called at some point in the game. They can't let that frustrate them, but they played a very physical game against Jackson Center. They play in the Shelby County League, so I'm not sure if Richmond Heights, they probably will play a little more physical than Shelby County League, but it's not like Russia has played in a league where they don't allow physical contact. No. So we'll see. I agree 100% with you, Sonny. They really need to get off to a good start. They need to land the first punch. And if they come out of the first quarter right there or a little bit ahead, then I would like to see them put pressure on Richmond Heights. I would like to see them not just, by guarding them, but I would like to see them make Richmond Heights play meaningful possessions in the second half, because I'm not sure they've had to do that a lot.
No, I looked at the stats today that Tim Street sent out. I don't know if you guys get his emails, but because they're doing the coaches, conference call stuff tomorrow, and they sent stats, and I believe, I don't remember the exact numbers, but they averaged 80 some points a game, maybe 85, and they averaged giving up like 46 a game. So, in that league they play in a league with like 12 or 14 schools, but they play some tough out of conference games, which is where their losses are going to come. They've got like 6 losses, and it's going to all be against bigger schools and bigger divisions, probably up there in Northeast Ohio. But yeah, so they're winning by like 40 points a game on average. So they know how to play from ahead, but you get them in a tight game, they're not used to it.
And Botkins was able to do that. Botkins was able to get them in a tight game. Now, Sonny, you talked about Russia getting out in transition against them. Here's the other alternative. Russia can play games in the 20s, as they showed us. Would you hold it on them?
Well, Russia's done that. I've seen them do that against teams in the past. And it's not necessarily just holding the ball. It's just being very patient in a half-court offense. And I was just sitting here thinking as you guys were talking, one of the things, if you'll remember back, Bruce, that Botkins did was they made them play patient half-court offense, and it made Richmond very uncomfortable. So I think if you can do that and get somebody out of that racehorse mentality that we're just going to beat you to the other end and dunk, I think by the second quarter, or at least by halftime, that gets in your mind that we're going to have to adjust. And can they make the adjustments at halftime, the coaching adjustments necessary to overcome that in the second half? I think that's another part of that confident start by Russia. Whatever it takes for them to get into their mindset that we can win this thing, they have to do that.
Yeah, they can't turn it over. That's what all the teams that really pressure you on defense, Harvest Prep, Afrocentric, Richmond Heights, Ottawa Glandorf gets up on you and pressures you. All these teams that like to play that pressure defense, if you can deny them those easy runouts and make them score in a half court, then you can cause them some problems. But if you start giving them free baskets like Tri-Village did Harvest Prep in the regional semis, you just cannot give teams 20 and 30 points off transition. And if that happens, a great story in Russia will come to an end, and we'd love to see Russia hoist that trophy and end it all the right way. But they are decidedly up against it against Richmond Heights, a team that a lot of people have argued might be the best team in all 4 divisions. I don't know that I'd go that far, but they're very good. Now, Saturday morning, we've got a rematch, Ottawa-Glandorf Afrocentric. That was a heck of a semifinal last year, and they play each other again. Colin White against Dalen Swain. Colin White's a junior. Dalen Swain's headed to Xavier. The other game on Thursday, the 2 p.m. game in Division III, is Lutheran East against Harvest Prep. Is Lutheran East the defending state champion? I believe they are.
No, maybe.
Yeah, no, maybe.
How's that for an answer?
I believe they are the defending state champion.
They might be. I can't remember. You have to look it up.
So
I was going to say somebody else, and then I realized, no, that wasn't right. So then I said maybe.
So if they are, we have a chance for 3 divisions to have repeat champions, because Pick Central is the defending champion in Division 1. If Lutheran East is in 3, we know Richmond Heights is in 4. And I do not believe we have the Division 2 champion back this year. So
that was St. Vincent.
Yeah. So let's chat about the game that I suggest everybody get into UD Arena really, really early for. The 5:15 game on Saturday night, the rematch of last year's Division 1 state championship game, Centerville and Pickerington Central.
Well, what do you want to know?
Yeah, exactly. What do you want to say? You may have the 2 most compelling players, I think, in the state of Ohio, just because of all the notoriety Devin Royal's gotten. He's going to Ohio State. You just chatted up Brooks Cups because he's not going to Ohio State. Gabe Cups because he's not going to Ohio State.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, last year Devin Royal opened my eyes. Now I don't get to see him because I'm here and he's there, but he opened my eyes last year with just how tough in the lane he is, number 1. And 2, he can move away from the lane and be just as tough. He's the complete package. He's strong. He's big at 6'7", 6'8". He's a horse. And there's a difference between tall and being a horse. And he can do that. He's got it both.
Yeah. Well, when they, excuse me, they played in December at Nationwide, and Centerville beat him in double overtime. And Royal had 27 in that game. Cups had 12 all in the second half. But they found a way to get to, Centerville. I didn't feel like Centerville played that well that day and somehow found a way to win. And Central felt like if Royal wasn't doing anything, not very much was going to happen. Now, that was December. I'm sure Central is better now. Other guys have fleshed out their roles, some of the new players in there. And Centerville's playing better now as well. When I saw him last week, I thought it was as good as I've seen him play all season in the districts. I did not go to their regional games. I was in Dayton, mostly with Bruce, covering other stuff. But I did watch their win over Fairfield on live stream, and they blitzed Fairfield down the stretch in that game. So I've seen them finish strong against 2 really good teams, Central and Fairfield. They had to finish strong to beat Wayne one night that I saw. So they have this ability, and that's how they won the state. If you remember 2 years ago when they won state, Westerville, which one was it? Central?
Central, yeah.
They might have been down late in that game if I'm not mistaken, and they had to find a way to play, outplay a team in the last 4 minutes. So they seem to have a ability to do that, and maybe a lot of that is Gabe, but they have an ability to just finish well. And so that could be, they could be down 4 or 5 starting the fourth quarter, but I wouldn't count them out.
Well, that was kind of the way the game went last year in the state title game. Pickerington Central kind of broke away middle of the fourth quarter. The big difference to me is they don't have Sonny Styles out front anymore. They could have, but he went. Let me see. He could be back. Right?
He should be playing.
Yeah,
I mean, he could be playing for them. He reclassified. If he hadn't reclassified, he might have skipped basketball anyway and enrolled early in January. So at Ohio State. But, if they had him back, I would say they're definitely the favorite. Without him, I think this, like D2, I think this D1 is wide open. I don't think there's people have asked me, is Centerville going to win state? And my answer is, well, they can. They can. I don't know if they will. You got to make all the right. They're gonna have to play well and make plays down the stretch and not let what happened last year to them go. They went ice cold in that fourth quarter. They couldn't hit anything. So
I think they also have to be considerate of some of the players that are around Devin Royal as well that you don't hear much about. Gavin Headings being one of them.
Yeah, he's
because he's a good player and a good rebounder. He's a guy that may give you 8 or 10 boards that you don't expect just because you don't hear very much about him because of Royal. So there's some X factors out there. The kid that transferred in from Chaminade that's playing for Centerville is that same type of athlete, or can be on a given night. So Bruce makes a good point. It's probably the game that is going to get the most attention in the entire tournament, just because of the marquee names are at the top.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
Do we know anything about whether Hoban or Toledo St. John's has the horses to defeat the winner of Pick Central and Centerville on Saturday night?
I don't know. I don't know anything about them really. I haven't gotten to the point of studying and looking them up, but they're here. They're here. They made it. Hoban's the ones that beat St. Vincent St. Mary. So they're not nothing. And so, and Centerville lost to St. Vincent at home this year. So, I think it's wide open. I think that the prevailing theory though will be, like as you said, with all the hype, with all the attention on the semifinal, there's going to be a feeling like, well, that's the real state championship game, and that may prove out in the end of whoever wins that game. If they have kind of an easy win in the final, we can look back and say that, but I don't think you can say it yet.
So switching our attention to the Dayton Flyers, I watched them for the first time this year on Sunday. I was actually impressed with their team. I am surprised they're not going to take an NIT bid, but I don't know what their injuries are. But I felt like they were right there in VCU and didn't get it done. Ohio State made a nice run in the Big Ten tournament. Won 3 games, finished, let's see, they would have finished winning
16 and 19.
6 and 8. They would have won 6 of their last 8.
Yeah.
After losing 14 of 15.
Mm-hmm.
So decent way for them to end. Are the UD women in the NCAA tournament, Jeff?
No, they didn't have a very good year.
Okay. The Ohio State women are.
Yeah, Tamika Williams Jeter came in to be the new coach, but it's one of those things where the coach left and some players left and left the cupboard kind of bare. So she's a Dayton native. She played on great CJ teams back in the day, and then she played at UConn, and she was on McGuff's staff over there at Ohio State, and then she's at UD now. So
well, she needs a 3-point shooter. I know if you can find one.
I think you could see an entirely different Dayton team next year, men's team, because frankly, they did have some injury teams this year, and I was with some people in Dayton today that are holding their breath about the portal because they think they could lose 3, 4, maybe 5 guys off that team that were a little disgruntled in the locker room. I think that came out in mid-season when Anthony Grant made the statement he made in the postgame one night after a loss. So I don't know what they got coming in, but they better have something coming in because I think they're going to have something going out.
Well, yeah, I don't know what all they got coming in. A little bit, some good. I can't off the top of my head. I can't remember what, but it may be more than what we're expecting if some guys leave, and I would hate to see it. This season, I follow them. I watch just about every game of theirs. I grew up as a big fan of that program growing up down in Dayton area. And I thought, I was telling people before the year, they're going to be a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. And then when Malachi Smith got hurt, that really derailed them a lot. And they didn't play very well. And they just had a lot of injuries to guards. I mean, they were missing guards in the A-10 tournament, still almost won it. So it's really disappointing that they didn't win. They went ice cold in the second half and just didn't win. It was very disappointing that they did not win that tournament because coming in, they seemed like they were going to be great. And, it's just more disappointment on top of the COVID year when they were going to be a number one seed and didn't even get to play in the tournament. So There's just been a couple tough real breaks for them.
All right, gentlemen, we're almost at that hour. So, Sonny, what would you like to bring up before we say goodnight to everybody?
Well, first of all, I always want to thank people for the kind of readership that we have. And we talk about that frequently. And it seems like almost every week. But we more than doubled the readership that we had in previous years for the girls' state tournament weekend last weekend. And we certainly picked up a lot of people from across the state that are discovering PressProsMagazine.com for the first time and apparently liking it and sharing those URLs of those stories. So always appreciate hearing from the people that were kind enough to write in the last week like they do. And just keep sharing that. If you like what you see, we like it when you share it with somebody else because that's what makes this business go around.
Mr. Gilbert, you got your first look at the Ohio State football Buckeyes. You will be covering them for us this year.
Yeah, I was over there a couple days last week. Wrote a piece about the quarterback thing. Haven't had a chance to write anything else yet, but I will be. I came away from the 2 days I was there, and I know spring practice and there's confidence and everything, but what I'm wondering this year, especially on defense, pieces didn't fall into place like they're supposed to, right? Will pieces fall into place on defense, which I think has to happen, as we saw in their final two games. They weren't ready for teams that good. And one thing that would maybe interest the people watching this from especially in Central Ohio was he was asked about Sonny Styles, and probably some people that are watching this have read this from other sources by now. But does Sonny have to be a starter? You guys got to find a place for him. And they didn't say no. They didn't anoint him at anything yet, but they didn't say no. So you're going to see him on the field. And then the other big question mark, the quarterback thing is the decision is like that gets all the attention, right? And it's going to, I think they'll be good, whoever it is. But the offensive line, you got to replace three guys that might be drafted as high as no later than the second round. So that's
big key. I agree with you, Jeff. Their offensive line, I thought, was not underperformed last year in the games that I shot and saw them, especially from behind. To sit behind them in the end zone and watch them at the 20-yard line and try to run the ball with power, it was laughable sometimes. They just could not move people, and it isn't because they're not big, and I'm sure they're strong, but something wasn't happening for them on their offensive line, and they couldn't run it without tricking people. And I just think ultimately the thing that got them beat last year was not being able to overpower teams that had them figured out, and I think they've got to do that ultimately in the future. To be able to fulfill the expectations that people have. And the expectations, as you know, are just nuts. But it starts with running power football, and they can't play power football anymore.
No, they can't. They haven't. And, I think there was some people were thinking last year, I heard people talk about, well, why do they need to run it? Look how well they can throw it. Well, sooner or later, we're not playing Indiana every week. Okay. So sooner or later, you're right. You've got to be able to impose your will. And the offensive line didn't do that a lot last year. Now they got to replace three of those starters. And the defense did not impose its will at all against good teams consistently. Good plays here and there, some good stops, but then the big play, give up the big play. And they cannot let that happen. I go back to that Tressel's championship team back in 2003. he had Mike Doss on the back end of that. No, they never got beat deep all year. Never. That team never got beat deep, and they won. And so they're really high on these, this safety-driven offense thing, and the corners look good coming in, and they got a transfer, and Burke looks really good, and all this kind of stuff. So that's what has to be proven. Can they stop people, and can they block and run the ball? And those are the two. I agree with you. Those are the two big things.
And Tressel also had a lot of 8 and 10 minute drive. I don't know how many minutes, but he had 12 and 15 play drives that took 8 minutes off the clock, shortened the game, and kept Michigan's offense off the field.
Yeah.
That's what we've forgotten about with this run pass option offense and all these things of filling empty backfield and 5 wideouts and just going for the play to the high wire act down the field. That doesn't always work. It's beautiful to watch when it works. When you got Garrett Wilson and Olave out there beating people, you can't get enough of it. But sometimes you just have to keep the other team off the field.
Well, the last time they won a national championship, they had a pretty good running back and a pretty good running game.
And number 15 was pretty good.
He wasn't bad. He
13.
wasn't.
Number 13, Maurice Claret.
He was pretty good too.
I'm talking about Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, he's talking about Zeke.
I'm sorry. I totally forgot that championship. Sorry, Urban.
You forgot about that one?
I forgot that one.
Sorry, Urban.
That one was pretty sweet.
I was even there and I forgot about it. Sorry. That's because I don't think of Oregon Ohio State as one of the great games of all time.
No, well, it was the week before it was the game.
Yeah.
That in that case, the semifinal was definitely the championship game.
Yes, it was. All right, Sonny, before we go, we got to get the OSU baseball update in 45 seconds or less.
Hey, they're 8-6. They are on a 4-game win streak. They just swept Cal State Bakersfield, scored 25 runs yesterday in a doubleheader, and a youngster from Centerville, Ohio. You'll like this because you asked me about him the other day.
Yeah,
went 7 for 10 yesterday in the doubleheader. Matt Gravlin.
I'm telling you, I gotta go with you one of these weekends. Once the weather, it gets warmer, I'm not going.
See how you are.
That'll be June.
I ain't going when there's snow flurries in the air. No, I have my standards.
Yeah. Not only is he a good young prospect, but he's a good kid and very athletic. And I was talking with they play at Marshall on Wednesday, where Greg Beals is now the head coach. And I talked to Greg this morning, and one of the first people he asked about, because he recruited him to Ohio State, was Matt Gravlin. And it's just to give you an idea about Greg Beals, he still refers to him as the boys because he recruited so many of them. And, just impressive the fact that he left on the terms that he did, and he's still interested in the kids that he thought were the kind of players that he wanted to have around him and he brought to Columbus.
Well,
playing one game or two?
One game. Tomorrow they're supposed to play, but it's supposed to be 36 degrees and a wind chill in the high teens, and so they've already canned that. So they'll play Wednesday, a single game at 1 o'clock, and then they have Dayton for the home opener, UD on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 6 on Friday night, Saturday at 2, and then Sunday at 1. Sounds like I'm a beat writer for the baseball team, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
All right,
gentlemen. Do we want to make state championship picks or not?
Oh, I don't.
I don't hear anything.
There's one thing that I've found out about the state basketball is the rim shrinks, heads shrink sometimes. It is totally unpredictable, in my view, unless one team is just that much better than another. And I go back to that Botkins game 2 years ago against Richmond Heights. I looked at Richmond Heights, I looked at Botkins warming up, and I said, there ain't no way in the world, that Botkins can play with these guys. And yet Botkins came out and played a miraculous game and won. They ended up winning the whole tournament, beat Columbus Grove the next day and won it all. So it's very hard to pick, I think, a champion. The most interesting would be Centerville and Pickerington. And just for grins, I would pick Pickerington.
Yeah, I don't know who I'll pick in that one. I think it's hard for me to go against Gabe Cups. I'll pick Cups in Centerville.
Well, I think the way I've seen Centerville play lately, I'm gonna lean definitely lean toward them. I feel like it's somewhat of a new cast, and I think there's a real hunger there. Not saying they weren't hungry last year, but there's a real hunger there, and I don't think. I mean, that hurt Gabe deeply last year to lose that game, and he doesn't want to go through that again. So your man is going to really play his heart out.
I'm sure he will, and I'm sure it won't be the last time. Only it'll be the last time it doesn't put a dagger in the center of my heart when he plays his heart out. Mr. Folks
fading out on us.
Yeah, Mr. Folks, internet. This is why he should have been at Skynet Internet Services tonight, and he would have had much better internet. But Gibby, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey,
thanks everybody for watching. Follow us on Instagram at Press Pros Magazine. Same on Facebook. Twitter is at Press Pros Mag. We will record a new episode of the Lowdown tomorrow morning, setting up the state tournament. And we just appreciate everybody. Remember, all the content is free on Press Pros Magazine. You never pay for it. Thank our sponsors. And thanks for watching. Tell your friends about the replay, which will be on the site in minutes. And the rest of you have a good night. Jeff, we'll see you at UD Arena this weekend.
Take care. I'll see you soon.